There you go. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys, depending on the time zone that you guys are joining from. Right. Today's session is very special, and as you know, we do host a lot of events and meetups under the Workato community. And today is one such day where we are collaborating with the product and engineering team at Workato and doing a session around triggers, which is of course few topics under it, polling and dynamic. We have the entire connectivity team over here who is helping us to deliver this session. I'll shortly introduce them, who they are. Before, let me just introduce myself. My name is Niaz, and I lead the global community and the education partnership here at Workato. Community program is the reason why we all are here. And let me just give you a brief about what education partnership program is all about. Under the education partnership program, we tie up with universities and school across the globe, and we introduce Workato to the students while they are currently studying into their semesters, right? So we have technical schools, we have business schools, we have management schools across the globe where we have done the tie up, and we are trying to incorporate Workato into the curriculum, right? So if any of you guys who have good connections with your schools or universities and would like to make sure that the future workforce are well trained on Workato or getting introduced to Workato, you can reach out to me and we can discuss, and let's get this partnership to your universities and schools soon, right? So from the connectivity team, we have Harish here. Harish is the integration developer, and he'll be the speaker for today's session. Along with Harish, we have been joined with Mahesh and Aaron. They would be the moderator along the session and helping you with any questions and doubts that you have in between. Since Harish would be delivering the session, so all those questions that you put it on the chat, Mahesh and Aaron would be there to answer those. Let's welcome all of them, Harish, Mahesh, and Aaron. Hey
Yeah,
guys, how are you?
hello.
Cool. Hey, now before I hand it over to these guys, last slide from myself, which speaks about what is the housekeeping rule for this session, right? Make sure you mute your microphone, guys. It's a meeting, not a webinar, so all of you have rights to unmute and speak, but make sure that you are always muted when the speaker is doing the session, and just to avoid the background noise from your place that you have. And of course, respect each other. If you have any questions, use the Zoom feature to raise your hand, and we will allow you to speak and clear or ask questions that you have, right? As I said, the chat will be moderated by Mahesh and Aaron, so if you have any questions, feel free to post it there, and these guys will go ahead and answer those questions. And of course, any feedback is welcome, because this is a series that we keep on doing, and in every session we want to make sure that we learn and we improve on whatever mistakes we have done. So at the end of the session, please feel free to share feedback. Feedback would be divided upon the content, the logistics and everything. Make sure you give us the correct feedback so that we can improve upon those and we can serve you better the next time, right? So that's all from my side. I'll hand it over to Harish, and he will walk you across through the agenda. What is today's agenda about triggers, pollings, and what are the things that these guys have planned for. And I'll be there for throughout the session. Once the session gets completed, we'll do the feedback. And in between, if you have any questions, as I said, put it into the chat comment. And if you want to unmute yourself, please raise your hand and we'll allow you time to speak in the session. That's all from my side. Harish, I'll hand it over to you. All the best, guys.
Thank you, Nias. Thank you. Hello, guys. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are. So, welcome to the SDK Connector Trigger session today. So, myself is Arish G. I'm an integration developer in Workato, and I will be the speaker for this today's session. So, if you have any questions, feel free to chat. So, let's get started with this session. So here today we are covering the topics like triggers, and in the triggers we are covering the pooling of records and static triggers and dynamic triggers. Along with we'll understand the duplication of it, like how we can avoid the duplication. And finally, we will wrap up the summary of this session. Let's first begin with the discussing the what is a trigger and its purpose, and next we will cover the key triggers in the SDK connector, and we will dive into the demos and we'll understand the each part of the triggers, and we'll see how it works and those things. So triggers in a connector is allows the to run the recipe based on some specific events or scheduled events times. Triggers enables the automation by initiating the workflows when certain conditions are met. And trigger serves as the starting point for every recipe and initiating the workflow within the recipe system. Events are processed in the order they occur, and ensuring the duplication processing is prevented and unintended consequences are avoided. So how does it works? So every recipe will start off with a trigger, and it will deliver the records in the order. So the way they created or modified, the events are delivered, and the trigger will pick up those events and it will process by one. So let's see what are the types of triggers in connectors, in SDK connectors. We have a polling triggers, scheduled triggers, and real-time triggers. And we have a newly introduced hybrid triggers, which is real-time plus polling trigger, which is combination of that. So today we are only focusing on polling triggers and real-time triggers. So let's start with the polling of records, like polling triggers. So polling triggers are checks for events at a regular intervals. So in Workato, recipe polls the target system every n minutes and determines if any new events have occurred since the last poll has happened. The API endpoint we use must support the pagination and allows filtering based on the last created or updated modified timestamp. So the output of the trigger, it might be have a single record or multiple record based on the bulk or a batch action we are performing on. So we will see the polling trigger components. So in the polling triggers, we have our input parameters, and we'll check the every events, and we'll implement the like pagination, and finally we can implement the closure component. So we see closure and pagination, which helps the like to poll more if we have any more records in when we are receiving a more records. And closure part will gives us a like a closure component is like for we define the for next polling interval. So defining input parameters. So commonly used field in polling trigger, we use the scenes or object fields. So the object field is tells us which object we need to retrieve, and the since time is like the initial timing which the polling will picks up. So the input since we can provide the date or we can give it like 1 hour or the time. So basically if the next poll trigger is happening, we will set it as a like the last record date time, which is last we received in the trigger. So the polling lambda function is responsible for fetching the events from the target application. So it will each regular interval for 5 minutes. Pagination is another component in the polling trigger. The pagination allows us to fetch the next set of records immediately without waiting for the next time interval. If the total number of records exceeds the page size, it will poll the next poll and it will return the next set of records. And closure is a role in the polling trigger is the closure is where we define the parameter for the next polling cycle, either immediately or after the specified time interval. So this last modified date stamp, or we can keep that as a cursor where which we have received of the first polling, and the next polling is the last record of that record. Timestamp will be the next cursor from where it has to be picked up from the records. So we will jump onto the demo and we will see how we can build the polling trigger and what are the components how we can define in the triggers. So for demo purpose, I'm using a fresh desk connector. Here we are going to be we will fetch the records whichever the tickets are updated or modified tickets. So you can see the structure of the trigger. So this is the structure of the trigger. So we'll go by one and we'll understand what are the things we need to build for polling triggers. So for better understanding and use cases and user need to understand the UI, we need to define the titles, subtitles, and the description for the polling trigger. So we can make a use of the title attribute and subtitle attribute to define what is the trigger is, and we can use the subtitle attribute to define what exactly the trigger it does. And we can give the description on like we'll use like span and those in HTML tags to make it more beautiful things on the description side. And we can provide the help text in the help attribute. So the object and the this is the object which is a config field in the trigger, which will allows us to pick the what the event we need to select from that polling trigger. If you are selecting a tickets, which your interest is in picking the tickets records, then you can define that in a pick list and you can refer in the object so that it will appear in the UI so that you can select the ticket object for the polling. So the input fields are like since. So this is the field. We can say like this is the field where we provide the timing from where to pick up the records. Or you can leave that and you can define when you are defining the polling lambda, you can define it like when you are from 1 hour, you can pick it up or what is the time you need to pick up that one. So next is a polling lambda function. So polling lambda function takes the parameters like connection and the input and the closure part of the parameters. So here we can define the closure on the first initial stage when we are starting the trigger, the closure will be empty. And we can define this closure at the end of this polling lambda function. So the page size is a like we can set it like to how much page for the first page, how much records we need to retrieve. And we can set the page like from the initial, it will start from one first page and we can increment that page in the closure part so that we can, if we have a more than 30 records, then it will fetch in the next page. And we can set it by the update since. So this is the field we are setting it. So from where it needs to be start. Like when if you are not defining the since time, it should pick up from 1 hour ago. Or if you are mentioning a since time, then it should pick up from the since time, whatever the mentioned since time is there. And this is we are setting at the closure part. So this is the last. If we have a like more than exceeds the page size records, then the last record will be become the next update since time to pick up the record from that particular date. And we are setting all of the required parameters for the API endpoint to fetch the records. And we are calling the HTTP method here. So we are passing the parameters and we are saying like to get the records from that particular page and page size and with the respect to the time. So once we have the records, so here we are defining the pagination thing. So if we have any records which is has a more than the defined size, then we will take the last record of that and we can set that since time and we are incrementing the page size in that case. If we don't have any page size which is not exist more than the mentioned thing, then it will look back to the same time and it will set the page size to 1. So this is the two cases we are handling here. And we are setting that parameters for the next polling. So you can see that in the hash, we are defining the events, the whatever the records we are receiving. So in this records, it will process one by one as a jobs. And the next poll, we are setting the closure parameters, what we are setting in the closure to retrieve the next set of records. And we are setting the can poll more to the as more because if any records which is out there, then it will set to true to poll more. If it is false, then it will stop the polling to after that. So dedupe is a like a logic we use for not to have a like duplication of any records or something like that. So usually we use the like record ID and the timestamp to make it as a unique job thing. So it should not repeat the job again. So this is a polling trigger components and we will set it in that way. So let's see how it works in the recipe. So I'm selecting a new or updated record. So I'm selecting an object. My interest is to retrieve the ticket records. And I'm setting the since time like 1 day or 2 days back. I can say this and I'll start the recipe. So we have given the time. So it has to pick up the records from the particular that time. So I have a 3 tickets in the fresh desk. So it's picked from that date and it retrieved the 3 records. If I add a new ticket, then it should pick up the latest one. So I'm going to create the ticket here. So I'm going to create that. So it's created. It should pick up the ticket, the newer ticket, which is one. So it has found the one job, which is we created recently, and it will process that. You can see the latest, the record, which is we created just now. So this is our incident to that. So this is how it works, the polling trigger. So it will poll every n time and it will pick up if any new or updated record is created in the target application. So before moving on to the next, is there any questions on the polling trigger? Hello?
We haven't got a specific question to it. All the questions that were there were answered by Aaron and Mahesh. You can proceed ahead, Harish.
Thank you. Thank you. So next we will see like how the structure into the webhooks. Like we have a like static webhooks and dynamic webhooks. So this is all the real-time triggers. So real-time triggers actively listens for the events to occur. When a recipe is triggered, it waits for a webhook from the target application, which is fired as soon as the specified event happens. There are two types of webhooks used in a real-time triggers. One is static webhook trigger and dynamic webhook triggers. Static webhook triggers are the fixed URL that the target application sends the event to that. Dynamic webhook triggers are like this generates the unique URL for each instance and allowing for more flexibility integration with the target applications. Let's begin with discussing the static webhook triggers. So similarly, how we are define the input parameters for the polling triggers, here also we will define the parameters and we will determine the what all the events we need to subscribe the target application. We will set in the target application, and we will build a like to listens for events. We will build the logic on the static webhook trigger. And finally, we'll discuss about how the subscription can be ended or we can remove from the target application. So the input parameters for the static would be like consist of one field, which is like in this example, it's a like event. So it's a like pick list. So here you can pick up the particular event, whichever you're interested on that event. So next we'll understand how you need to subscribe to the target application. Uh, Basically, target application, we need to copy the static webhook URI of the connector and we can paste the appropriate target application and we can establish the connection between the target application and as well as the connector. The basic way we do this one, we will go to the application and find out the webhook application. We can paste it over there and we can save that. The next component in the static webhook trigger is webhook key. So this is a function which is invokes each webhook in the connector receives. It allows to define like a unique routing key for the each webhook. We will talk about more on the when it comes to the demo. So next is like how we can unsubscribe. Usually static webhook when we establish a connection between the target application and the connector. So usually when the recipe is stopped, then the target application won't unsubscribe from that establishment, what we establish a connection. We manually need to go and we need to delete that subscription. Then only we can end that uh, connection. So we will see how we can do the static webhook trigger in the connector. So I'm using a Panda DAC for to show the demo for the static webhook trigger. So this is the structure of the static webhook trigger. You can see that. So here we have defined the webhook keys, which is we defined Lambda function on the on the top of the connector. So this is globally we are defined, and this takes the parameters like params and headers and payload. So here it creates a unique key. Uh, this will use for match the whenever the connector receives the webhooks from the target application. So similarly, how we define the titles and subtitles for the trigger, we can define it here also. And the input field for this is like event. As I said, the events is in this case, the event is the input field. So which event you are interested, you can pick up from the pick list and you can set it. And this event, we'll use it in the when we are configuring in the static web. So the next component is webhook key. So as I said, so this is webhook keys. We have generated a one unique key, and here we are in this lambda function, we are matching with that one. So once these both keys are matched, then only we will receive the events. And the next component is webhook notification. Here we will pre-process the whatever the data we are received from the webhook thing. Similarly, the dedupe thing is like to prevent the duplication of that. So we'll talk about the deduplication at the end, more details. So let's see how we can see in the recipe thing, recipe system. We'll go back and we'll create a one recipe for this. So before proceeding this one, we need to subscribe to the target application. We'll make use of this webhook from the connector and we will subscribe to the target application. This is the unique webhook URL for that particular connector. So I will copy that and I will go to the Panda app, and here in the Panda app we can configure that webhooks. So I can create a webhook and I will give the name for that. And I will paste the unique webhook URL, and I will select the whatever the events I have interested in it, and I will create the successful connection to the target application and the connect. So once we done the subscription from the event pick list, I'm going to select the document deleted event. I'm interested in to receive the whenever the document has deleted in the target application, I have to get the notification for that. So I will save this and I will start the recipe. It's established a connection and it started listening the events. So once we go to the target application, and I have a documents here. So if I do any deletion operation for that particular document, then I should receive the event in the connector. So you can see one successful job. So that means we have received the event from the target application. So this is the event we have performed on the target application. So you can see that the document which we deleted, we have received that notification. That's So this is how static webhook works. So any questions on the static webhook trigger? Hi guys. Is there any questions on the static webhook trigger?
We have one question over here, Harish. So the question goes, does the webhook endpoints get automatically generated? If so, does it vary from environment, say dev, staging, or production?
Hi, Gauri. Yeah, the hook and endpoint will automatically generated for each connector. Yes, it also differs from dev, staging, and pull. So each connector have its own static webhook endpoint. So you can configure that endpoint to your end application.
I guess that's it, Harish. There's no more questions so far. You can proceed ahead.
Okay. The next section, we will see like dynamic webhook triggers. So the main difference between the dynamic webhooks and the static webhook trigger is the static trigger requires manual registration, while a dynamic trigger allows you to the subscription to occur automatically using the provided webhook URL. So the dynamic naturally simplify the process of subscription happens without manual intervention. So here also we have some components like similar to the static webhook triggers. It has a input parameters and it has a how you the subscription will happen in the target application and how the dynamic will wait for to listen the events. And finally, same thing how the subscription we have deleted from the static webhook, but in dynamic it automatically deletes that subscription things. So similarly, how we define the input fields in the static, here also we can define the input fields, which is like, it might be sometimes it can be multiple pick list or it might be a single pick list thing. So this event we'll use for the to register the webhook things. So how we can how it will be subscribe the events in dynamic. So whenever the dynamic webhook is triggered, then it will automatically establish the connection, right? So the recipe will start and the process will take the unique webhook URL and it will assign to the target application and it will automatically receive the jobs and things. So we use the specific webhook URL from the recipe and uh, it will subscribe to the target application. Once the subscription is established, and it will start listening the events. So the webhook will send the real time from the target application as soon as event occurs in the target applications. Once upon receiving the webhook, the recipe process the events immediately and it will process one by one. So here the subscription in the case of static webhook trigger, we have manually went and we have need to delete that subscription. Then only it will remove the subscription from the target application to the connector, right? So, but in dynamic, it will stop when we stop the recipe thing. So that is a major key difference in the static and webhook description, webhook keys. So we will see how we can build the dynamic webhook trigger in the connector, and we'll see components of the dynamic webhook. So this is a structure of the webhook dynamic webhook trigger. So similarly, how we define the titles and subtitle and description. So here also you can define the titles and subtitle and description for the trigger. And as I said before, we define the config field for the event, which is a like pick list. You can select the which event you are interested in it, and this event will use in the when you are configuring the when you are subscribing the dynamic webhook trigger to the target application. So the next component, we can clearly see that the difference in the static, we use the webhook key, which is the unique string which matches with the global string for every receiving the webhook, uh, right? Webhook event. So here it uses the API endpoint to subscribe the event, subscribe the trigger to the target application. So we make use of the HTTP method, post method, and we are calling that webhook subscription endpoint, and we have defined the name of for that particular webhook subscription, and we are setting the specific URL, webhook URL from this connector, and we are setting the trigger to listen this to this event. So webhook notification component is similar which is in static webhook trigger and dynamic webhook trigger, which here we can receive the notification from that target application and we can pre-process it or we can do that. Next is a webhook unsubscribe. As I said, here it dynamically deletes the subscription once the recipe is stopped. So for that, you make use of the HTTP method, you delete, and we are the particular the UID using UID, we are unsubscribing from that target application. So these are the two components which is majorly different from static webhook trigger. And similarly, we use the dedupe block. So the dedupe block will prevents us from the duplication on thing. So let's go and see how it runs in the recipe. So here also I'll select the event document deleted. So I'll start the recipe here. And I will go ahead and I will delete the record from the founder app. You can see we have received the event from the target application and it processed. So this is how the dynamic webhook trigger will register dynamically and it will listen the events and it will retrieve that event. So any questions on the dynamic webhook triggers?
Uh, there's no question, Harish, on the chat that's left.
Okay. So moving on to the next slide, we will discuss about like duplication. So deduplication block we are used in every triggers to prevent the any duplication or any data processing which is preventing from the like happening like duplication of it. So we'll see how we can define the deduplication block. If you see in every trigger, we have defined this one with a unique ID and the timestamp. So which gives us like differentiate from the like record to record, like which we are receiving from the target applications. So any questions so far? No, right?
No.
So then I will summarize this session. So till now we have discussed about the triggers, and we discussed about like polling records, and we have discussed about like static webhook triggers and dynamic webhook triggers, and we seen the duplication of records, right? So trigger is like the initiating the specific action or workflow, right, in the recipe. So we have defined the triggers as a mainly two types, like polling records and real-time triggers. When it comes to polling triggers, the polling triggers will fetch the records systematically. Periodically, it's checking the every n minutes, and it will fetch the record from the target applications. So real-time trigger is like it's setting up the webhook to listen the events from the uh, target application. And once the target application has created any event, it will get to notified as soon as. So in the major difference between static webhook triggers and dynamic triggers. So in the static webhook trigger, you have to manually register the uh, subscription, and you have to turn down the subscription manually. But in the dynamic webhook or triggers, it will take dynamically, it will register subscribe rate and dynamically unsubscribe when the recipe is stopped, right? And we see in the deduplication block in every triggers, which will avoid the duplication, and it will make sure that any unique things will come up in the events and those things. So this is a session, my session. If you have any questions, feel free to raise the questions.
There's a question here, Harish. The question says, what happens if a trigger or a webhook takes longer than a default timeout of 180 seconds?
Hi, Gary. As like I answer, like the hook triggers are the listeners, not actually like it won't make any call, so it doesn't have any request timeout. So for polling triggers, yeah, we might have some scenario to get some timeout error, but still like it will like try to hold the same record again in an interval. So let's say by default, like Workato have 5 minutes polling interval. So it will again poll, try to poll in the next interval time. So if like it will like even if it fails for a couple of times, it's okay. It will poll, but we stop the recipe once it hits 60 consecutive errors, so it won't fall after six consecutive errors. Hope that helps.
Yep, you've got a salute on that, Mesh.
Thank you.
Okay. Alice, do we have anything left?
No, I think.
Okay, that's great. Then we are way ahead of time. That's great. So,
And
yep. Can you
uh,
go a slide back, Harish?
These are
Yep.
the like useful resources. You can visit these links, and you can find out more about like what the Workato and and you can visit our particular page on the connectors, and you can see the sample codes.
Correct. I'll just, spend another minute here to give more details on this slide. So the first link is the academy.workato.com people. So it's basically our on-demand, course. So you can always go to the academy, register your through your email addresses, and we have a whole lot of course available there. Also, we have a role-based course. Of course, SDK connector, we have a different series of courses available there. So it's on demand, so you can always go to, whenever you have time or requirement, and you can start learning from there. We have our own YouTube channel. Of course, we have a lot of videos that Workato host. Apart from that, our community members have also created their own YouTube channels where they have started, creating tutorials on how to build recipes and other use cases around Workato. So you can also refer to those videos. And as usual, docs is always our favorite spot. If you have any questions, if you're stuck somewhere, you can always refer to docs and get answers through docs also, right? So these are all the useful resources that you can go across. I guess Harish, you had another slide to show.
These are the useful tools to check your webhooks things. You can test out using a webhook site, and you can check the postman for your triggers, and you can test it out.
Got it. Got it. Harish and Mahesh, there is another question if you can address that. So it says, what is the recommendation or the best practices for implementing webhooks?
Uh, yeah, like it mostly depends on the end application API. So, if the end application supports the real-time API endpoints of for the webhook, like we can manage the webhook by creating a dynamic webhook. Like if the end application supports only a static subscription that sends an event to a single endpoint, we have to proceed with the static webhook layer. So that's all about the recommendation. But if some service offers both static as well as dynamic, in that case, we should go for the dynamic webhook trigger, because like the dynamic webhook trigger have unique URL for each and every recipes, but the static webhook trigger have only one unique URL for each connector. So it's always good to go with the dynamic.
And one more note I need to put it on it. In the connector, we can't build static and dynamic triggers in the same connector. We can build it like polling trigger and any one of the static trigger, like one of the real-time trigger.
Great.
An interesting fact about the pricing things, like the trigger won't consume any task. So if you plan to build a trigger, like consider this task consumption also, so that you will reduce the task consumption and reduce some money out of it.
Sharing some cheat code, Mahesh.
Yeah.
That's always great to hear. All right, cool. So, any more questions, guys? All right, cool. Let me just share my screen. So we have few, things to be shared. All right. So the next in-person meetup is in Delhi NCR region. Folks around in India in those regions, if you are there, make sure you join us. We'll be present, at the day of the event. The venue is yet to be decided. We'll finalize it soon and we'll publicly announce it in the coming days. But the date and timing are fixed. It's on the 14th of December, which is on the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., which would be followed by lunch. The series is AI at Work. We have been doing this series across multiple cities and we have got a very good response. And that's the reason why we are also expanding the series across the next meetup at the Delhi NCR region. We have our fantastic team who's delivering it, Sahil and Karan, both based out of from Delhi, Gurgaon areas. So they would be speaking about our platform, new capability, the Gen AI capability, which is the Copilot, and of course our hero product, which is the Workato Genie, right? So if you're interested to learn more about what Copilot is, what Workato Genie is, and what Workato is in general, please do join us in the Delhi NCR region. If you can't join in, if you have your folks, colleagues, friends across in that area, do pass this event link to them so that they can get the benefit out of this meetup. Clear? Now let's head back to feedback. I'll just release the feedback over Zoom itself. Just give me a second. So there you go. The feedback should be there in front of your screen. It's few random 6, 7 questions. And as I said earlier, this question will help us to make sure that we do better in the next session that we host, right? We also have a section at the very bottom of the feedback that if there is any specific topic or any technical part that you would like to get addressed, please make sure you mention those so that we can get those demand and we can host a session on that. So, right. So all of us are available, on the LinkedIn platform. You can always connect at us. And also apart from that, we have our own community page. And of course, I believe all of you who are there in the session today would have gone through the community page itself and got the RSVP link. So make sure you follow the page very well. The community page has the forum inbuilt into it. So if you have any questions, technical questions, make sure you put it in the forum. And anybody who's there in the community, it's not only Workato employees, but any participant who is who knows the answers would be able to answer your queries from there, right? The platform has grading depending upon the engagement that you do. So you start from sous chef, deputy chef, till the way you go to an executive chef. So depending upon the interaction and collaboration, your batches would get automatically upgraded. Yeah. So we have got few feedbacks waiting for the other people to also share the feedback. Till then, if anybody has any question, please make sure that you post the question into the chat, or you all of you have the rights to unmute yourself. If you want to speak anything or ask anything, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions. The recording will be shared, yes. So what you can do is go back to the event page again, and in the comment section, you would see the link for the session. So it will take you to the stream, and you can always look at the session whenever you want. It will be again on demand. The 14th of November, no, it's not November, Arjun. It's on the 14th of December. The session is on the session would not be shared virtually since it's an in-person event. So we would not record the session in that case.
Niyaz, there is one more session tomorrow, right? Like which is on IDP, which is Workato is hosting is tomorrow.
Yes, so that's another session. My bad, I haven't added that. So yes, we do have another session on that. Of course, feel free to also join those sessions. And IDP is one of the newest feature again, which we have launched in our portfolio. So make sure you go ahead and join. Harsha, if you have the link in hand, feel free to pass it in the chat so that the other participants can also make a note of it.
Yes, yes, sure.
Thank you, Harsha. Any questions, guys? Anyone? Right, I appreciate, we have, quite a global audience here, people joining us from the US, of course, India and other part of the world. So it's a mixed crowd, you know, mixed timing, let me say, right? We folks at India are almost at, the end of the day, and there are people who are, starting the day, right? So that shows the commitment towards, the community and the session that you guys are bringing upon. Okay. This is the second series in the SDK session that we are doing. We hosted another session in the past. If you want to also look at what was the session, as I said earlier, we have it in our events page. You go back to the events page in the past link. and you can always scroll to the event, and in the comment section you can get the video recording for that also. Okay, we'll give another 1 minute and then probably we'll end the session.
Niyaz, I have shared the IDP link.
Thank you so much, guys. Okay, I believe that's all the feedback that we have got. Thank you so much, people. And we really appreciate the efforts that you guys have taken today to join the session. We do know, everyone has their, busy schedule. So you have taken time on a weekday to attend this session. As I said earlier, we would be hosting such sessions under the community program very often, not only the SDK connectivity part, but also on the different portfolio of the product that we have. So make sure you follow us on the community page, and that will keep you updated about all the next upcoming sessions that we have, right? And a big thank you to Harish, Mahesh, and Aaron for your efforts. And let's plan another session soon in the future. Right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye.
Thank
Take care.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.